Hello and welcome to Theater Operations Unleashed, the monthly show that explores the ins and outs of theater operations, management, facilities, and design. I'm your host, Raymond Kent. In each episode, we will be focusing on management, operations, design, trends, and best practices in the performing arts. I hope to bring you both insights from my 4 decades in the industry, as well as engaging conversations with theater professionals about the challenges and rewards of their work. We'll also cover a wide range of topics from budgeting and scheduling to marketing and audience development, theater technology, and many other related topics. Whether you're a theater maker yourself or just interested in the industry, I hope you'll find this podcast informative and inspiring. So sit back, relax, or lean in, and let's dive into the world of theater. Welcome back, and today we are stepping into the part of our series where we move from philosophy and history into the built environment itself. We're starting exactly where every patron's journey begins: the site arrival, the parking experience, and the exterior approach. Here's the thing most people forget. Accessibility doesn't start at the lobby. It doesn't start at the box office. It doesn't even start at the front door. Accessibility starts the moment someone decides to come to your venue and asks, "How am I going to get there? Where do I park? Can I get from the street to the entrance without barriers?" For many people with disabilities, these are not small questions. They're deal breakers. So today we're going to walk through the entire arrival sequence from the street to the seat and talk about what it means to design that experience with intention, dignity, and universal design at the core. One of my favorite lines from this session comes from the Adaptive Environment Center. The journey from the street to the seat is itself a designed experience. And it's true. Every step, literally, is part of the experience. But here's the problem. Most performing arts venues have never examined that journey from the perspective of someone for whom every step is a negotiation. Think about it. A steep slope from the parking lot, a crosswalk without curb cuts, a loading zone blocked by rideshare vehicles, a parking garage with low clearance that can't accommodate wheelchair vans, sidewalk with uneven pavers, a long, unshaded walk in extreme weather, confusing approach with no signage, a quote-unquote main entrance that isn't exactly accessible. Any one of these can turn a night at the theater into an impossible task. So the arrival sequence isn't just a path, it's a system, and every link in that system matters. Let's talk parking, one of the most misunderstood parts of accessibility. We have some code minimums. The ADA standards gives us a sliding scale. 1 accessible space for up to 25 total, 2 for up to every 50, 3 for up to every 75, and so on and so on. And at least 1 in every 6 accessible spaces must be van accessible. But here's the truth. The code minimums are not enough for performing arts venues. Why? Because our audiences skew older. Because mobility impairments are more common among arts patrons. Because events create peak demand. Because wheelchair vans require more space and more clearance. So what's the best practice? A real provision, 4 to 6% of total parking is accessible. At least 1 in 4 accessible spaces as van accessible. Accessible spaces distributed across the lot, not clustered in one corner. Real-time signage showing accessible space availability. Clear vertical clearance for vans. At least 8'2" throughout the route. And here's a big one. Accessible spaces must be on the shortest accessible route to the entrance. Not the most convenient place for the designer, not the leftover corner of the lot, and certainly nothing else. The shortest available route. For many patrons with disabilities, parking isn't the issue. Drop-off is. Paratransit, rideshare, family drop-offs, wheelchair accessible vehicles. These all rely on well-designed loading zones. What the ADA requires: an 8-foot wide pull-up space, the 5-foot wide access aisle, level surface, no curb ramp projecting into the aisle, clear markings. What best practice really looks like is a dedicated, protected loading zone, weather protection, a canopy or an overhang, separation from general drop-off traffic. Staff presence during peak times, clear digital instructions for rideshare drivers, enough space for a van ramp to deploy safely. A blocked loading zone isn't an inconvenience, it's a barrier. The accessible route is the path that connects everything. The parking to the loading, loading to sidewalk, sidewalk to the entrance. And it has to be continuous, unobstructed, and usable by everyone. So what does the ADA tell us about width of these? Well, the minimum is 36 inches. But for performing arts venues, that's not enough. Crowds plus mobility devices is a recipe for congestion. Best practice, 60 inches or more. Surfaces. Surface have to be stable, firm, and slip resistant. That means no loose gravel, no uneven cobblestones, no decorative pavers with wide joints, no turf, no glossy concrete that becomes an ice rink when wet. Asphalt and concrete are your friends. And we all know about slope. A running slope, max 5%, cross slope, max 2%. These are dictated within the ADA. A 3% cross slope might seem minor, but for a wheelchair user, it means constant sideways drift. Protruding objects. Anything sticking out more than 4 inches between 27 inches and 80 inches above the ground is a hazard for blind and low vision users. Think wall-mounted lights, signage, planters, temporary banners, seasonal decor. All of these can be hazards, especially for somebody who's low vision. As we get older, we all start to lose our sight. A little bit more every year, some of us quicker than others. Ramps. If you do need a ramp, max slope 1 to 12. That's the maximum slope. 36-inch minimum width. Level landings. Edge protection so you don't roll off. Handrails. Non-slip surfaces. Properly installed detectable warnings. Ramps are often most visible accessible feature, and they're the most frequently misdesigned. If you're not sure, talk to a code consultant, talk to the building department, talk to your design professional, and get some real advice. The ADA requires at least 60% of public entrances be accessible. Well, let's be honest. Why not make it 100%? Isn't that the real goal? Because nothing says you're not part of this, like being sent to a side door. The best practice here is every public entrance is accessible. Automatic door openers, level hardware, not knobs. Adequate maneuvering clearance. Vestibules with enough space between doors, clear signage, lighting that supports visibility and safety. Direct intuitive path from the exterior to the lobby. The entrance is the first impression of your venue. Make it the best you can. Make it as welcoming as you can. It should communicate that everyone is welcome, not the exception. Not every venue controls its entire climate, right? We have climate, urban sites, shared facilities. Urban theaters often share parking lots, sidewalks, or loading zones with other tenants. Cold climate venues face snow, ice, freeze-thaw cycles that wreak havoc on surfaces. So if it's a cold climate that you live in and you operate in, why not look at possibility of heated walkways where possible? Aggressive snow and ice management, non-slip exterior finishes. How about covered loading zones? Drainage that prevents ice sheets even from forming. In urban sites, coordinate with the city agencies, clear signage from transit stops, negotiated improvements to shared sidewalks. Because if they've got to get to your venue, I'm sure they would also like to get to your neighbors, which could be the restaurant that they're going to go eat to before your show. Maybe it's a bar that they'd like to stop at afterwards, or maybe they're going to do some shopping, or it's the hotel that they're going to stay at before they come and see your show. Wayfinding that begins at the street corner, not the door. Let's talk about shared parking. Agreements that guarantee accessible spaces. Enforcement of a van accessible space usage. Shared maintenance responsibilities. Clear communication to patrons about where to park. We know that not every venue owns their own parking, and oftentimes there are 1 or 2 companies within a municipality that has control over all of the parking. Make friends. Have them be your neighbors. Show them the opportunity for them to operate that parking lot in a safe manner, and allow them to be welcoming to your patrons, which only brings them more business. Accessibility doesn't stop at your property line. It extends also into the public realm. So that's the first step in the built environment, the arrival, the parking, and the exterior approach. And here's the takeaway. If the arrival experience is stressful, confusing, or inaccessible, the rest of the venue doesn't matter. Accessibility begins long before the lobby, and it begins with the decision to attend. And if the confidence that that journey can be possible, warm, and welcoming, so that everyone can be included. In the next episodes, we'll move inside the lobby, the box office, the auditorium, the stage house, and beyond. Let's keep building stages and theaters where everybody belongs, starting from the street. Thanks for taking the time today to listening to Theater Operations Unleashed. We hope to see you next month.